everyone, and welcome back to the Whale Nerds Podcast. This is Minisode number 10. My name is Slater, and I'm here with Caitlin.
Hi.
Hello.
So for this episode, we had a chance to participate in press day for The Loneliest Whale, The Search for 52, which is a film that comes out July 9th, which is the day that this episode is coming out. And we got to chat with Josh Zeman for a brief interview about the film and about him. And so we're going to put in the audio from that interview with him now. And so you'll be able to hear a little bit more from Josh about what inspired him to make the film, things that surprised him, all that good stuff. And Slater and I chatted with him via Zoom for press day. So you'll get to hear that next.
So my name is Josh Zeman. I'm a filmmaker, and I directed The Loneliest Whale, The Search for 52.
Awesome. Okay, so most of your work is actually like journalism and producing on the subject of serial killers.
True
is that
crime.
like most
True
of your
crime.
true crime? Is that a better way to say it? So how did you shift from true crime to The Loneliest Whale?
That's a good question. I had just done a pretty hardcore deep dive into a case in Long Island, and I really just needed a palate cleanser. And I think at the time I had just broken up with a girl, and I had read the story of The Loneliest Whale, and it profoundly affected me. And I started to go out and tell people. I was like, "Oh, you heard the story of this lonely whale?" And they're like, "No, tell me about it." And I was like, "Yeah, it's this whale that swims to the ocean calling out and never receives a response. And they first heard it on these classified microphones in the ocean that they used for the Cold War." And it was just such an interesting response from all these people when I told them the story of this whale. And it really made me think as a filmmaker, what is it about this story that is so emotional for people? Why do they connect to this story so much? And that's a very interesting thing for a filmmaker. You know, you want to know why people connect to certain stories. But this one, that connection was so powerful. And I was like, well, is it because he's lonely? You know, is it the fact that, this is like, okay, man's existential crisis staring him back, in the face? Is this the mirror of humanity, but in the form of a whale? And then when you add in like the whale part of it, it takes on a whole new lore, if you will. Like, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. And so this was a kind of cool way to get in touch with that. And much like mysteries of true crime, the ocean is an incredible mystery, if not more, So It was about exploring that mystery and trying to uncover the truth behind this story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How did you hear about the 52 Hertz whale?
Originally, I heard it through an article that had been done by a guy named Andrew Revkin, a science writer for the New York Times, and he first wrote about it. And he had heard about it in a paper that Watkins had put out right before his death. And it was just so interesting because it was a very academic paper. But at the end of the paper, there's 2 lines where suddenly somebody really waxes poetic about this lonely whale, and it jumped out for him. He's like, the scientist was like, "Oh, what would it be like for a whale that swims to the ocean calling out?" And it was just so weird to be in this academic paper. And so he picked up the story kind of and then it just caught fire. It became this meme that went around the world. And that was so interesting to me how that happened.
So thinking about kind of timeline of all these things, because I heard the legend of the 52 Hertz whale quite a while ago, and I heard that Adrian Grenier was interested in it, but this was 5-6 years ago, so it seemed like the whole thing kind of simmered for a while. Was there a moment that made it all spark and take off and become this film?
Well, it was interesting. We had gone out and launched the campaign, a Kickstarter campaign. We're like, okay, we're gonna make this film about a whale. But what I didn't know is that trying to find one whale in an entire ocean is incredibly difficult. So, I mean, I knew it was going to be hard, but and part of the fun was going into the scientist's office and being like, okay, how hard is it to find one whale? And they're like, you're ridiculous. But so it took a while to even find out if 52 was even alive. We had been searching for 3 years, and scientists were like, oh, we think he's dead. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have this huge Kickstarter campaign. I'm going to be the laughing stock. And finally, after a year or so of thinking he's dead, John Hildebrand from Scripps down in San Diego said, oh, I think he had an intern who was listening to tapes and said that they thought that they heard him on their hydrophones out in Santa Barbara. So that is what allowed us to kind of go back again and do it. I had done a couple other shows in the middle of that. So, there was a kind of lull there, going back, doing another show, getting more money, coming back and finishing the edit and things like that.
Cool.
Before you got started on this film, have you ever been whale watching prior to that?
Well, like in the film, I talk about working on a schooner out of Boston Harbor that took people whale watching. And so, or like on trips. And so I would, watching a whale, seeing a whale for the first time is a truly transformative experience. It's like seeing God, people freak out. No, but it's true.
No, it's true. It's true.
That's a question that I would ask people all the time. I was like, do you remember the first time you saw a whale? Like, they never forget it. Yeah. And, even that is like, so why? Why is that? And is it because a whale is so huge that we're suddenly humbled by its size and we realize like how minuscule we are? Is it because being out in the great big ocean? So I had seen that whale, but like, it also wasn't just seeing the whale from like the boat perspective. Like, I ran up to the top of the mast, like 115 feet, and looked at the whale from above. And then, it's just an additional perspective and just like, wow, oh my God, this thing is so huge. So yeah. that was what initially kind of sparked a lot of it.
Yeah. Just aside, what schooner were you on out of Boston?
It's called the Harvey Gamage. So it was a
I know the boat.
Yeah.
I work in Gloucester.
Oh, there you go. So
yeah.
And we took people up, and that whole community is so great, going up to Gloucester, going up to Nantucket. Mm-hmm. There's such like a mystique and allure about that community. And I think that that's something we also kind of wanted to try and capture, like an adult voyage of the Mimi.
Yeah. Awesome.
Was there?
I don't know. Ben Affleck was in Voyage of the Mimi.
What was that?
Ben Affleck is in Voyage of the Mimi, by the way.
As a very young.
A very young Ben Affleck. It's pretty funny.
Was there something during the project that surprised you?
The whole project surprised me.
Yeah.
Like you would go in and you look at a map of the world, and you just have no concept of how big it is. Like there's a scene in the film where the scientist is like, you see that little inch square? That's 1,300 miles. And you're just like, what? So there was that initial thing, but then like sitting with these scientists and being like, okay, well, once we spot 52, like it's proven, right? And they're like, no, we have to identify the call and then link that call to the specific whale that's making that call, because he's probably in a pod of other whales. We have to tag him when he comes up and then goes back down and then reestablish it. So it was like, it's incredibly complicated to confirm that 52 is 52, that this hybrid whale theoretically is making this sound. And so it was really interesting. Also, one of the most surprising things was how little they knew. Like they would be like, well, we don't know. And I was like, how can you not know that? Like, you've been studying whales for 60 years. And they're like, no, we don't know that. They're like, it is incredibly hard to get information about an animal that is out hundreds of miles in the ocean, traveling 25 miles an hour. You can't stop it. We've never had one in captivity that allows us to understand how its behaviors are in the wild. So I was like, oh, I guess that is interesting. Like I had no idea how little we knew, because on the surface, our relationships with whales, even humpbacks, are so strong, but in fact, it's not at all.
That exact concept is what made me fall in love with marine mammal science.
Yeah.
Like I sat in class and asked questions and had the same response. What do you mean you don't know? And they're like, once you get in the field, you'll see what we're talking about, but we literally don't know.
And it's
but it's
hard.
also kind of like proving that 52 exists is kind of like proving a crime in a court of law. Like you have to have just this huge burden of proof.
Totally. The amount of evidence, it has to be like an incredible amount of evidence, including DNA evidence, it's like, geez.
Yeah. So I guess maybe they're not so far off.
That's what I'm
your two interests here.
Maybe we need detectives and scientists to collaborate.
Totally. Well,
yeah. We're all about, interdisciplinary collaboration, but we never really thought about involving the justice system, but maybe we'll have to rethink that.
Well, there are killer whales.
They are. They sure are.
Thank you.
Well, we really enjoyed the film, and we're so excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about it and share it with our listeners. And I don't know if you want to share any parting thoughts on what you think about 52 without spoiling the ending, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
Yeah, one of the interesting big themes I think that people kind of don't understand is the impact of song. Songs of the Humpback Whale. Delving into that history was so cool to see how in the 1970s Songs of the Humpback Whale was like this #1 album that people went out to like records to go see, how they would go in and like drop acid and listen to like Sounds of the Humpback Whale on headphones. But what was so interesting is that our relationship to animals and whales is all based upon us, unfortunately, right? We're a very self-centered species. And so it was only when we heard these creatures sing, we were like, oh my God, what could be so angelic? It's beautiful. And only then did we turn around and realize, like, wait a second, we're killing these animals? And it's like, yes. And so the killing of these animals launches Greenpeace and the Save the Whales movement. I mean, and blows your mind considering what we're protesting today, that there's like tens of thousands of people in front of the Capitol building with like a giant floating whale protesting, killing whales. And so it's like, okay, that's cool. And that leads to Greenpeace and the Save the Whale movement, which then leads to the green movement of today that we're now using to fight climate change. So you can make this very cool direct link between whale song and where we are today in terms of our fight against climate change and, of course, ocean stewardship.
Yeah, I think, whale song is one of those things that help change the world, at least
absolutely
in regards to the environment. So
absolutely. So cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We're very excited for the film to come out. So that was our interview with Josh Zeman, and The Loneliest Whale, The Search for 52 is in theaters today, July 9th. It will be on digital on July 16th. We'll have more information on where you can watch the film. We'll probably just put it on our social media. So let us know what you think of the film. We had fun interviewing Josh, definitely your non-traditional whale film guy, I would say. And thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you guys enjoy the film like we did.
Thank you.
Bye.